In life, we often face moments of difficulty and hardship, yet it is through these experiences that we discover our true capacity for growth. Pain, rather than being simply a burden, can reveal hidden strengths within us. When confronted with adversity, we are forced to confront parts of ourselves that may have remained dormant or unexamined. In these moments, we find resilience we never knew we had, as the challenges we face push us to adapt and transform. Our vulnerabilities become sources of power, and we come to realize that there is a depth to our character that is only awakened when life challenges us. Moreover, the hardships we endure create deeper connections with others. In suffering, we begin to understand the shared human experience of struggle, allowing us to cultivate compassion and empathy. We become more attuned to the pain of others, offering support and understanding in ways we might not have before. These connections strengthen our relationships and remind us that no matter the circumstances, we are not alone in our pain. Through struggle, we also begin to embrace the present moment more fully. Pain teaches us the value of each experience, encouraging us to cherish the time we have and to approach life with a greater sense of gratitude. It is in these moments of discomfort that we often learn to let go of what we cannot control, allowing us to flow more freely with the current of life. In the end, it is not the absence of pain that defines our lives, but how we respond to it. When we face challenges with openness, courage, and a willingness to learn, we emerge stronger and wiser. The pain that once seemed like an obstacle becomes a powerful force that shapes us, teaches us, and ultimately leads us to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Life, in its very essence, is a dance of contradictions. We seek happiness, yet find ourselves caught in the webs of sorrow. We yearn for comfort, but pain finds us in the most unexpected of places. Yet, in these moments when life hurts, when the world feels heavy and the heart weary, there is a deeper truth waiting to be uncovered. Pain, in its many forms, is an intrinsic and undeniable part of the human experience. It is not something that we can easily escape, avoid, or wish away no matter how hard we try. Pain is the silent teacher, the force that pushes us into deeper levels of awareness. We often associate pain with suffering as if the two are inseparable. However, it's crucial to understand that pain is not necessarily a punishment or a sign of something wrong. Pain, in its purest sense, is a natural response, an unavoidable aspect of our journey through life. Whether it's physical pain, emotional hurt, or mental anguish, it is part of the fabric of existence itself. The nature of pain lies in its universality and its ability to cut through the illusion of separateness. No matter our status, our accomplishments, or our desires, pain touches all of us. It is the great equalizer. Pain does not discriminate based on age, wealth, or social standing. We might seek to protect ourselves from it, to hide it away or mask it with distractions, but in doing so we miss the profound lesson it holds. It is in our pain that we find our shared humanity. We are all vulnerable, we are all capable of suffering, and we are all subject to the inevitable waves of pain that life brings. The experience of pain is often met with resistance. We don't want to feel it, we don't want it to last. The immediate impulse when pain arises is to flee from it, to numb it, or to push it away. But the truth is, pain cannot be avoided forever. It has a way of returning, often in ways we least expect, until we acknowledge it and allow it to be. Pain, in this way, is a teacher, urging us to face what we'd rather ignore. It's not a force meant to harm us, but to guide us toward greater understanding. When we resist pain, we inadvertently create suffering. But when we face it with openness, without fear or judgment, it has the potential to lead us toward growth and healing. At its core, pain is a signal, a messenger that something within us needs attention. When we are physically hurt, our bodies signal us with discomfort or distress, asking us to stop, to rest, to tend to ourselves. Emotional pain works in a similar way, signaling that something within us requires care, understanding, and perhaps a change in perspective. But it is in our tendency to resist that we amplify our pain. We believe that pain is something that should be eradicated, something to be feared. And in this belief, we make the mistake of trying to suppress it, to deny its existence or its role in our lives. This resistance can prolong our suffering and cloud the deeper wisdom that pain can offer. Pain also carries with it a deep sense of impermanence. No matter how intense or overwhelming it may seem in the moment, pain is never permanent. The very nature of life is change, and so too does pain change. It ebbs and flows, sometimes gradually, sometimes suddenly. This impermanence is a truth that can bring us great comfort in times of hardship. Just as moments of joy are fleeting, so too are moments of pain. Both are part of the ever-moving current of life. Understanding this allows us to approach pain with a sense of acceptance rather than resistance. If we can accept that pain is not here to stay forever, we can more easily move through it, knowing that it will eventually transform into something else. The paradox of pain is that it can lead us toward greater understanding and connection. We often think of pain as something that isolates us, something that sets us apart from others. But when we allow ourselves to truly experience it, we realize that pain is a doorway to empathy and compassion. It is when we have suffered that we can truly understand the suffering of others. We no longer view pain as a solitary experience, but as something shared by all. It is in this recognition of our shared vulnerability that we find connection, not just with others, but with the world itself. In embracing our own pain, we cultivate a deeper sense of compassion and understanding for all living beings. Moreover, pain can teach us the importance of presence. When we are in pain, it demands our full attention. It calls us to focus on the present moment, to stop what we're doing, and to acknowledge what is happening within us. In this way, pain becomes a spiritual practice, a reminder to stay grounded in the here and now. We cannot change the past, nor can we predict the future. The only moment that truly matters is the one we are experiencing right now. Pain, in its rawness, strips away all distractions and forces us to confront the present. In doing so, we realize that the present moment, even in its pain, is the most precious thing we have. Pain, when embraced fully, has the potential to transform us. Just as a seed must break open to sprout into a tree, we too must go through the discomfort of breaking open in order to grow. Pain, in this sense, is not an obstacle to be overcome, but a catalyst for personal transformation. Through it, we discover hidden reserves of strength, resilience, and wisdom that we never knew we had. It is through the cracks in our hearts that the light enters, and it is through the breaking that we are reshaped into something more whole, more complete, and more authentic. In the end, pain is neither good nor bad, it simply is. It is a part of life as natural as breathing, as inevitable as the changing of the seasons. By accepting pain rather than fighting it, we open ourselves to the fullness of life. We learn to experience each moment, not as a series of events to be controlled or avoided, but as a flow of experiences to be lived fully. Pain, in all its forms, is a reminder that we are alive, and that in our aliveness, we have the capacity to feel deeply, to grow, and to transform. So when life hurts, we need not run from it. Instead, we can lean into it, embrace it, and trust that it will carry us to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. Impermanence is one of the most profound truths of our existence. It is a concept that resonates deeply within the fabric of life itself, touching everything we experience, from our fleeting emotions to the ever-changing seasons, from the rise and fall of civilizations to the inevitable passage of time. The truth of impermanence is inescapable. It is something that all beings must face, whether consciously or not. And yet it is in our refusal to accept impermanence that we often encounter the deepest forms of suffering. In a world where everything changes, it is the desire for stability, permanence, and control that leads to discontent. But when we truly embrace the fluid nature of life, when we learn to accept impermanence as a guiding principle, we open ourselves to a richer, more profound experience of reality. At its core, impermanence speaks to the transitory nature of all things. Nothing in this world, whether material or immaterial, is exempt from the flow of change. Our lives, our bodies, our relationships, our achievements, all are subject to the tides of time. The moments we cherish today will be memories tomorrow, and the things that seem so permanent and unchanging will, in due course, fade away. The recognition of this truth is not an invitation to despair, but rather an opportunity to experience life more fully. It is a reminder that everything we hold dear, every experience, every sensation is a gift, precisely because it is not meant to last forever. There is a profound beauty in impermanence. Just as the cherry blossoms bloom and then fall to the ground, so too do our experiences arise and pass away. Each moment is unique, never to be repeated. This realization can fill us with a sense of awe and reverence for the fleeting nature of life. It is in the knowledge that everything will eventually change that we learn to appreciate it all the more. The impermanent nature of things calls us to be fully present in the moment, to savor the joys and the pains alike, knowing that they will not remain forever. Every hug, every smile, every moment of connection carries a unique weight precisely because it cannot be held onto. To truly live is to accept that life will not remain as it is, but rather it will continue to unfold, moment by moment, in all its brilliance and its sorrow. However, this acceptance of impermanence is often challenging. Our minds are conditioned to seek stability and permanence. We desire to hold on to the things that make us feel safe, that provide us with a sense of control. The more we try to cling to things, the more we begin to identify with them. We find our worth in our possessions, in our relationships, in our achievements, and we believe that if these things endure, then we will too. But in doing so, we set ourselves up for inevitable disappointment. The things we hold on to with such fervor are not meant to last, and when they inevitably change or disappear, we are left feeling lost and helpless. The fear of impermanence is, in many ways, the root of much human suffering. It is the fear that we will lose what we love, the fear that we will be forgotten, the fear that everything we've worked for will eventually fade into nothingness. This fear can paralyze us, causing us to hold on to things that no longer serve us to avoid the necessary changes that life asks of us. We resist letting go, and in that resistance we create suffering. The more we try to control, the more we are reminded of our lack of control. The more we try to preserve, the more we see things slipping through our fingers. But this is not a tragedy, it is simply the nature of life. It is in accepting impermanence that we discover the freedom to live more fully. When we begin to accept that nothing is permanent, we can start to let go of the attachment that binds us to the past. We no longer seek to recreate yesterday, nor do we live in fear of tomorrow. Instead, we become free to live fully in the present. When we embrace impermanence, we realize that each moment is a new opportunity, a fresh beginning. We stop living in the shadow of what once was or what might be, and we open ourselves to the richness of the now. In this way, impermanence becomes a teacher, guiding us toward a life that is more authentic, more present, and more attuned to the ebb and flow of existence. Acceptance of impermanence also allows us to make peace with the inevitable losses that life brings. Loss is a part of life, and no one is exempt from it. We will lose people, places, and things that we hold dear. We may experience the pain of separation, the ache of saying goodbye, and the sorrow of change. But when we accept that loss as a natural part of the cycle of life, we can approach it with a sense of grace. We no longer resist it, but instead, we honor it as part of the journey. Loss, too, is impermanent. The pain of loss will pass, and in its place will come new experiences, new relationships, and new growth. In the acceptance of loss, we find the freedom to move forward without being weighed down by the past. This acceptance of impermanence also opens us up to the possibility of transformation. When we understand that nothing is fixed, we realize that we too are in a constant state of flux. We are not the same person we were yesterday, nor will we be the same tomorrow. This realization allows us to shed old identities, to release outdated beliefs and patterns, and to embrace the person we are becoming. It is in the acceptance of impermanence that we discover our capacity for reinvention. We no longer feel trapped by our past, but instead we see every moment as an opportunity to grow and evolve. Ultimately, acceptance of impermanence is a pathway to peace. When we stop fighting against the natural flow of life, when we stop resisting the inevitable changes, we find ourselves in harmony with the world around us. We begin to understand that life is not something to be controlled or mastered, but something to be experienced in all its beauty and complexity. We learn to let go, to trust the process, and to find contentment in the knowledge that everything is temporary, and that is what makes it all so precious. The illusion of control is one of the most insidious aspects of human nature. We are wired to seek mastery over our circumstances, to impose structure and predictability on an inherently unpredictable world. This desire for control is often seen as a virtue, a sign of responsibility, or a hallmark of competence. We are taught from an early age that if we just work hard enough, plan meticulously enough, and exert enough willpower, we can shape the course of our lives. The problem, however, is that the very notion of control is, in many ways, an illusion. It is a construct of the mind, a comforting belief that we are the masters of our fate, even though life itself is far too vast, too complex, and too mysterious to ever be fully controlled. The first step in understanding the illusion of control is recognizing that there are forces in life that are simply beyond our comprehension. We are constantly surrounded by variables, both external and internal, that are not within our grasp. These forces include the actions of others, the state of the world, natural events, and even the complexity of our own thoughts and emotions. No matter how much we plan, prepare, or strategize, there are always elements of life that we cannot anticipate or influence. The weather, for example, cannot be controlled. A random event, such as an accident or a natural disaster, can change the trajectory of our lives in an instant. Similarly, the behavior of others is not something we can fully predict or control. We can influence people to a certain extent, but we cannot dictate their choices or actions. The reality is that we live in a world governed by uncertainty, and no amount of effort can change that. Despite this, we persist in trying to control the uncontrollable. We construct elaborate plans, set rigid goals, and develop detailed timelines, believing that this will ensure the outcome we desire. We create safety nets for ourselves, stacking one contingency upon another, convinced that if we can just manage every detail, we will be safe from the chaos that seems to lurk around every corner. But the truth is that the more we try to control, the more we experience anxiety, frustration, and fear. This is because, at a deep level, we know that control is an illusion. Our minds may deceive us into thinking that we are in charge, but underneath it all, we are constantly at the mercy of forces we cannot see, predict, or understand. One of the most pervasive ways that the illusion of control manifests is in our relationship with time. We live in a culture that idolizes efficiency, productivity, and punctuality. We believe that by managing our time carefully, we can fit more into our lives, maximize our achievements, and ultimately reach a point where we have everything under control. We schedule our days with minute precision, and when things don't go as planned, we feel like failures or we become stressed. However, no matter how well we manage our time, we cannot control how time unfolds. We cannot stop the clock, slow down the years, or prevent the inevitable passage of time. Our best laid plans often run into unforeseen obstacles, and life, in all its unpredictability, carries us in directions we never anticipated. Time moves on, whether we like it or not, and no matter how much we try to control it, we cannot escape its flow. Moreover, the illusion of control leads us to overestimate our ability to influence outcomes. We become attached to the belief that if we work hard enough or push ourselves far enough, we can guarantee success. We believe that we are the architects of our own destiny, and if we simply follow the right path, we will reach our goals. This belief can drive us to push ourselves beyond our limits, to make sacrifices that ultimately harm our well-being, in the hope that we are somehow controlling the course of our lives. Yet the truth is that many of the most significant outcomes in life are not the result of pure effort or willpower. Much of life is shaped by chance, luck, timing, and circumstances beyond our control. We can make the best decisions and take the right actions, but we cannot always predict how things will unfold. The illusion of control blinds us to this fact and leaves us vulnerable to disappointment when things don't turn out as we expect. The need for control also deeply affects our emotional and mental well-being. We often believe that if we can just manage our emotions, prevent negative feelings, and keep our thoughts in line, we will be happy and peaceful. In fact, much of modern psychology and self-help culture promotes the idea of mastering our emotions and thoughts, creating a sense of emotional control, but in reality, emotions are not something we can control in the way we control our actions. They arise naturally, often without warning, and have their own rhythm and flow. Trying to control our emotions only leads to suppression, frustration, and ultimately more intense emotional outbursts. Similarly, thoughts are often not under our direct control. They arise in the mind, seemingly of their own accord, and we have little power over their content. When we attempt to control every thought and feeling, we create a war within ourselves, fighting against the natural flow of life. It is only when we release the need for control over our emotions and thoughts that we can find peace and acceptance. At the heart of the illusion of control is the ego, the part of us that wants to believe that we are separate, autonomous beings who can dictate the course of events. The ego feeds on control, believing that it can shape the world around it according to its own desires. But the more we identify with the ego, the more we become trapped in a cycle of wanting and striving. We believe that we must always be in charge, that we must always have the answers, and that we must always be right. This attachment to control keeps us locked in a constant state of tension. as we push against the currents of life, trying to steer it in a direction that aligns with our preferences. But life cannot be controlled in this way. It flows according to its own rhythms, and it is only by surrendering to this flow, by accepting the inherent uncertainty and unpredictability of life, that we can experience true freedom. The illusion of control is, at its core, a barrier to deeper connection with the world around us. It keeps us isolated in our minds, separated from the natural unfolding of life. When we let go of the need for control, we are free to experience life as it is, in all its richness and complexity. We begin to trust in the process of life, to embrace uncertainty, and to find peace in the knowledge that we are not in charge. We are, instead, participants in the great mystery, moving through life with openness, acceptance, and a deep understanding that, in the end, we are never truly in control. And that is where true freedom lies. Struggle is an inevitable part of the human experience. It is something that every person, no matter their background, culture, or beliefs, encounters at some point in life. Whether it comes in the form of personal hardship, emotional turmoil, physical pain, or existential questioning, struggle touches all of us. Yet, within the very core of struggle lies a profound wisdom that is often overlooked. Far from being a mere obstacle or a hindrance, struggle can be the fertile ground in which deep transformation occurs. It is through facing difficulty that we are shaped, tested, and ultimately refined. The wisdom in struggle is found not in the avoidance of it, but in the way we engage with it. At its essence, struggle forces us to confront the reality of impermanence and the limitations of control. In a world where we are constantly taught to strive for success, to seek comfort, and to avoid pain, struggle challenges this narrative. It disrupts the idea that life can be neatly planned or controlled. Struggle brings us face to face with our vulnerability and reminds us that, despite our efforts to manage everything around us, there are forces far greater than ourselves. When we resist struggle, we resist the flow of life itself. But when we learn to surrender to it, we uncover profound insights. In accepting struggle as a natural part of existence, we begin to realize that it is through facing adversity that we grow stronger and wiser. Struggle, then, is not a sign of weakness, but an invitation to become more resilient, to stretch our capacity for compassion, and to develop a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us. One of the most significant lessons that struggle teaches us is the nature of impermanence. When we go through a difficult experience, it often feels as though the pain will never end. We may feel trapped in our suffering, unable to see beyond the immediate moment of distress. But as time moves forward, we come to realize that nothing is permanent, including our pain. The same way a storm eventually passes, so too does struggle. It is the transient nature of difficulty that teaches us not to cling to our emotions or circumstances. In the midst of struggle, we may find ourselves wishing for a way out, longing for relief. But in learning to endure the discomfort and uncertainty, we cultivate patience and acceptance. We learn to hold space for our emotions, to acknowledge the pain without being consumed by it, knowing that, like everything else, it too shall pass. This awareness of impermanence shifts our relationship with struggle, turning it from a source of suffering into a tool for growth and awakening. Struggle also has the unique ability to reveal our true selves. When things are easy, it is easy to remain complacent, to drift along without questioning who we really are or what we truly value. But when we face a challenge, whether it's a personal crisis, a health issue, or a relationship breakdown, the mask of everyday life falls away. We are forced to confront ourselves in ways that we would otherwise avoid. It is in the throes of struggle that we discover what we are made of, what we fear, what we desire, what we stand for. Struggle exposes the parts of ourselves that we might not want to face, such as our insecurities, our unresolved wounds, and our flaws. And yet it is precisely through this exposure that healing begins. We are given the opportunity to transform, to address the aspects of ourselves that we have neglected, and to evolve into a more authentic version of who we are meant to be. In this way, struggle acts as a mirror, reflecting both our strengths and our vulnerabilities, and calling us to integrate both into a more complete and compassionate self. Another profound wisdom that arises from struggle is the realization of our interconnectedness with others. When we experience hardship, we often feel isolated, as though we are the only ones enduring such pain. Yet, as we move through our struggles, we begin to understand that suffering is universal. We are not alone in our struggles, and in fact, it is often through our pain that we develop a deeper sense of empathy for others. Struggle allows us to see the humanity in those around us, to recognize that everyone, regardless of their external circumstances, has their own battles to fight. This understanding opens the door to compassion, both for ourselves and for others. We are less likely to judge others when we realize that they too are walking their own difficult paths. Struggle teaches us that we are all in this together, that our individual experiences are part of a larger collective story. In this way, hardship becomes a vehicle for connection, deepening our capacity for love and understanding. Furthermore, struggle forces us to confront our attachments and illusions of control. We often spend our lives seeking security, desiring stability, and trying to protect ourselves from discomfort. We think that if we can just arrange things in a certain way, if we can just control our environment and our outcomes, we will be happy. But struggle has a way of shattering these illusions. It reminds us that no matter how much we plan or control, there are always elements of life that are beyond our influence. The struggle is not just an external force, it is a reflection of the internal resistance we have to letting go. When we face adversity, we are forced to loosen our grip on the need for certainty and control. Struggle challenges us to let go of our attachments to specific outcomes, teaching us to trust in the process of life itself. We learn to flow with the uncertainty, to embrace the unknown, and to find peace in the present moment. In this way, struggle becomes a path of liberation, helping us to free ourselves from the rigid structures and expectations that we have placed upon ourselves. Lastly, struggle nurtures resilience. It is often through the most difficult moments that we discover our inner strength. We may not know how strong we are until we are pushed to our limits, until we are tested in ways we never imagined. Struggle does not break us, it makes us stronger if we allow it to. Each time we overcome a challenge, we build confidence in our ability to face future difficulties. Resilience is not something we are born with, it is something we cultivate through our experiences of hardship. And as we grow more resilient, we develop a deeper sense of trust in ourselves and in life itself. We come to understand that no matter what challenges we face, we have the capacity to endure, to adapt, and to emerge stronger than before. The wisdom in struggle, then, is not found in avoiding or escaping it. Rather, it lies in how we respond to it. When we approach struggle with openness, acceptance, and a willingness to learn, it becomes the crucible for our personal growth. Through struggle, we learn patience, empathy, self-awareness, and resilience. We become more attuned to the impermanence of life and more connected to the world around us. And in the end, it is through struggle that we uncover the depths of our own humanity and the profound beauty of our shared experience. Living in the present moment is a concept that has become increasingly popular in modern times, often seen as the antidote to the stress, anxiety, and distraction that pervade our fast-paced lives. It is an invitation to slow down, to focus on the here and now, and to engage fully with life as it unfolds in front of us. Yet, despite its simplicity, living in the present moment is far from easy. We are often caught in the past or future, carried away by thoughts, memories, worries, and desires. We look back at what has been, regret what we did or didn't do, or we look ahead with anticipation or fear of what is to come. In doing so, we miss the beauty and the richness of the moment we are actually living in. The present moment is the only moment we truly have. It is where life is happening, right here and right now. The past is gone, and the future is unknown. We cannot change what has already occurred, nor can we control what lies ahead. But we have the power to engage with the present, to be fully aware of our thoughts, emotions, and surroundings. The present moment is all we can experience directly, and it is in this moment that we have the potential to truly live. However, we often take it for granted. We think that life will be better once we achieve this or that goal, once we get to a certain place, or once we reach a particular stage in our lives. But this approach keeps us stuck in a perpetual state of waiting, constantly postponing the fullness of life until some external condition is met. In truth, there is no better time to live than now. Living in the present moment requires a shift in our mindset. It is an intentional act of bringing our attention back to the here and now, instead of getting lost in thoughts about the past or future. Our minds are constantly moving, jumping from one thought to the next, often unaware of the current moment. When we are lost in thought, we are disconnected from life as it is. We miss the small, everyday experiences, the sensation of the wind on our skin, the warmth of the sun, the taste of a meal, or the sound of a loved one's voice. These moments, so simple and fleeting, are often the ones that hold the greatest richness. When we are present, we notice the details that we might otherwise overlook. We are able to experience life with a sense of immediacy and aliveness. In order to live in the present, we must also cultivate awareness. Awareness is the ability to observe our thoughts, emotions, and experiences without getting caught up in them. It is the recognition that we are not our thoughts, nor are we our feelings. We are the observer, the one who is aware of what is happening in the moment. By cultivating awareness, we can begin to see how often we are pulled away from the present moment by our thoughts and distractions. The mind has a tendency to dwell on the past or worry about the future, but awareness helps us break free from this cycle. We can bring ourselves back to the present by simply observing our thoughts without judgment, allowing them to come and go without getting attached to them. This practice of mindfulness, the art of being present with whatever is arising in the moment, is at the heart of living in the present. When we live in the present moment, we also learn to accept things as they are. We stop trying to change or control everything around us, and we learn to be with things just as they are without resistance. This does not mean passivity or resignation, but rather a deep acceptance of reality as it unfolds. We stop wishing that things were different and instead engage with the world as it is. This acceptance allows us to let go of the struggle that often accompanies our thoughts about the past or future. It frees us from the constant mental chatter that pulls us away from the present, and it creates space for peace and contentment. When we accept the present moment, we allow ourselves to experience it fully, without the filters of judgment or expectation. Living in the present moment also means embracing uncertainty. The future is inherently unknown, and the past is no longer within our control. The only certainty we have is the present moment, but we often resist this uncertainty, seeking security and predictability. We try to create plans, set goals, and hold on to what is familiar, all in an attempt to control the future. However, when we are present, we are able to surrender to the unknown. We release our need to control the outcome and allow ourselves to flow with life as it comes. This doesn't mean that we should abandon planning or goal setting, but rather that we do so with the understanding that we cannot predict or control everything. By embracing the uncertainty of life, we free ourselves from the fear and anxiety that often accompany our desire for certainty. When we are fully present, we also cultivate gratitude. It is easy to take the present moment for granted, especially when we are caught up in thoughts about the past or future. But when we take a moment to truly notice the world around us, we are often filled with a sense of wonder and appreciation. The beauty of nature, the kindness of others, the simple joys of life, these are all things that can be experienced only in the present. Gratitude arises naturally when we live in the moment, because we begin to see the abundance that exists around us. We stop waiting for something to happen and start appreciating what is already here. This sense of gratitude deepens our connection to life, and it helps us to cultivate a more positive and fulfilling experience of reality. Living in the present moment also enhances our relationships with others. When we are fully present with the people in our lives, we can listen deeply, understand their needs, and connect with them on a deeper level. Often, when we are caught up in our thoughts, we are not truly listening to others. We may be thinking about what we are going to say next or how we are going to solve their problems. But when we bring our full attention to the present, we become more attuned to the needs and feelings of others. This creates deeper bonds and more meaningful interactions. It allows us to offer our presence as a gift without the distractions of our own thoughts and concerns. Living in the present is not a one-time decision, but rather an ongoing practice. It requires mindfulness and discipline to bring ourselves back to the moment when we inevitably get lost in thought. But as we practice being present, it becomes easier, and the rewards are profound. We begin to experience life with more clarity, joy, and peace. We let go of the need to control or manipulate every situation, and we embrace life as it comes. We cultivate gratitude, acceptance, and connection, and we become more attuned to the beauty and richness of the present moment. In the end, living in the present is the key to experiencing life in its fullest sense, for it is only in the present that we can truly live. Pain, both physical and emotional, is something that every human being experiences in some form throughout their life. It is an unavoidable part of the human condition, and yet it is often seen as something to avoid or escape from. We fear pain because it disrupts our sense of comfort and security, and we desperately seek ways to numb or escape it. Whether it comes in the form of the loss of a loved one, the failure of a dream, a deep emotional wound, or physical suffering, pain has the power to shake us to our core. However, pain is not simply something to be endured or avoided. In its depth, there is an opportunity for profound transformation. Pain, when experienced consciously and fully, has the power to change us, to shape us, and to awaken parts of ourselves that we might not have known existed. The first step in understanding how pain can be transformative is recognizing that it often serves as a wake-up call. In times of comfort or routine, we may become complacent or disconnected from the deeper aspects of ourselves. We may get caught up in the distractions of life, focusing on external achievements or material possessions, and neglecting the inner life that truly defines us. Pain has a way of breaking through this surface level of existence. When we face pain, we are forced to stop and confront what is happening inside of us. Pain often brings us to a place of vulnerability where we can no longer hide behind the distractions or defenses we have built. In this space, we are given the opportunity to truly see ourselves, to understand our fears, desires, and emotional wounds. It is in these moments of pain that we can access a deeper level of awareness and understanding about who we are and what truly matters in our lives. Pain also has the power to break down the ego. The ego is the part of us that identifies with our accomplishments, possessions, and roles. It is the part of us that creates a sense of separation from others and from the world around us. When we are in pain, the ego is often the first thing to resist. The ego wants to protect itself, to avoid vulnerability, and to maintain a sense of control. But pain has a way of humbling us, of reminding us that we are not invincible or immune to the hardships of life. It strips away the illusion of control and forces us to confront the reality of our mortality and limitations. In this way, pain can dissolve the rigid boundaries of the ego, leading to a more authentic and expansive experience of life. When the ego is less entrenched, we can begin to feel more connected to the world and to others. Our sense of self shifts from a rigid, isolated identity to a more fluid and interconnected experience. Pain, in this sense, becomes a tool for dissolving the false sense of separation that the ego creates. Another way in which pain leads to transformation is through the development of resilience. When we experience pain, it often feels as though we are being broken. It may feel as though we cannot endure any more suffering, and yet as time passes, we often find that we are able to endure more than we thought. We begin to discover the depth of our inner strength, the capacity to face hardship with grace and courage. Pain teaches us that we are not defined by our circumstances, but by how we respond to them. Every time we face pain and choose to rise again, we build resilience, and over time we develop an inner fortitude that enables us to handle even greater challenges. This resilience becomes a source of empowerment. We learn that we are capable of facing adversity, that we can hold space for suffering without being overwhelmed by it. Pain, then, becomes the crucible in which our strength and resilience are forged. In addition to building resilience, pain also deepens our compassion. When we go through our own suffering, we often gain a new understanding of the suffering of others. The experience of pain opens our hearts, making us more empathetic and sensitive to the struggles of those around us. We begin to see the common humanity that binds us all together. Suffering, in this sense, becomes a bridge that connects us to others in a deeper, more authentic way. Rather than viewing pain as something to be feared or avoided, we come to see it as a shared experience that teaches us about the fragility and interconnectedness of life. Our suffering gives us the ability to offer comfort and understanding to others who are going through similar trials. This compassion that arises from pain is not just intellectual, but experiential. It is born from having walked through the fire ourselves and coming out the other side with a greater sense of empathy and love. Moreover, pain can lead to a profound spiritual awakening. Many people who have gone through intense pain or suffering report that it was in these moments that they experienced a deepening of their spiritual lives. Pain has a way of breaking through the superficial layers of our existence and bringing us closer to the essence of life. In moments of crisis, we are often confronted with the limits of our understanding and control, and this can open us up to a greater sense of mystery, surrender, and connection to something larger than ourselves. Pain can lead us to ask the big questions about life, death, purpose, and meaning, and in this inquiry we may find new answers or insights that we had not previously considered. Pain, in this way, becomes a gateway to spiritual growth. It can awaken us to the fleeting nature of life and the importance of living with intention, compassion, and gratitude. While it may seem counterintuitive, pain can also be a catalyst for creativity and growth. When we experience deep emotional or physical pain, we often feel that we are at a breaking point, but this very feeling of breaking can also be the source of new beginnings. Many artists, writers, and musicians have used their pain as inspiration for their work, channeling their suffering into creative expression. Similarly, in our personal lives, pain can lead us to reevaluate our priorities, values, and goals. It can push us to make changes that we might have avoided if we were comfortable. Pain can shake up our lives in a way that forces us to reimagine what is possible. In this sense, pain is not just something to be endured, but something that can propel us toward new growth, new ideas, and new opportunities. It is through facing our struggles that we often discover untapped potential within ourselves. In conclusion, while pain is undeniably one of the most difficult experiences we face as human beings, it also holds the potential for deep and transformative change. Pain is not merely something to be avoided or endured, it is a powerful teacher. It awakens us to our deeper selves, dissolves the illusions of the ego, builds resilience, nurtures compassion, and opens us up to spiritual and creative growth. It is through the experience of pain that we can find our true strength, purpose, and connection to others. Rather than seeing pain as a curse or something to be feared, we can choose to see it as a catalyst for transformation, an opportunity to evolve into the fullest.